Ghost of Yote. It's a very recent one, actually. I don't know if you guys have played it yet, but Yote is one where you look at this and you wonder, why didn't they market this better? Because one, it does take advantage of the Pro, and two, it had the secret ray traced GI features, which they never talked about up till release. And on the PS5 Pro, you get both. And you also get PSSR. So, and it's actually a very good implementation,
Mhm.
which, like Oliver, when you think about this, I think this is something we've noticed is that third party PSSR has largely been miss with some hits. But when it comes to Sony first party games, most of the time the PSSR implementations has been really good, right?
Yeah, I would say most of the time with PSSR in these first party games, you're getting a result that's like quite clean, I would say, and you're not getting as much of that
Right.
visual noise. Probably some of the details, like just to explain this a bit more with PSSR, some of the problems we tend to see with PSSR are like it tends to be bad with ray tracing, right? Where
Yeah.
usually,
Noisy.
the upscalers are often sitting after a denoising pass and they're having to take that blurry and often kind of noisy input and make it look good at a high resolution output. And remember, of course, that RT is usually done at like a small fraction of screen resolution. Like I think with software Lumen, it's like aspects of it are done at like 1/16th screen res. It's very low resolution, tends to be very low resolution. So the upscaler makes a big difference. And you see that sometimes with techniques like TSR, which are like hand tuned into Unreal to make that look good. PSSR is not. It's more of a black box. Does not work so well in those instances. And then it also tends to like almost hallucinate details, which gives it kind of like that boiling look, that unstable look, or maybe the input resolution doesn't have enough detail, and it's kind of the neural network is kind of generating plausible details based on what it sees, but it's shifting from frame to frame. It's not got a super great grasp on that, and it's not upsampling it correctly. So yeah, in these games, oftentimes in first-party PS5 Pro software, we don't tend to see those issues as much.
That's right.
The other exception I would really want to reemphasize is AC Shadows, and I think they talked in a PlayStation blog about working with PlayStation engineers on getting PSSR to work well with their game. But there is, I don't know if we want to switch this, but there is another first-party Sony title that doesn't use PSSR that has quite exceptional image quality. Isn't that right, John?
Yeah, Oliver. Actually, arguably, so this is an interesting one. This is another early patch release for the PS5 Pro.
Mhm.
And it's an example. Maybe I'm crazy here, Oliver, but to me, this might be the single best example of image quality we've ever seen in a console game on any console, right? I'm talking about Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah.
Which Guerrilla actually spun up their own solution for the PS5 Pro. This is not PSSR based. They clearly didn't feel that PSSR was right for them, and instead they went with something very different. And the result is honestly superb, comparable to the best DLSS implementations we've seen on PC. It is so sharp, so clear, and yet it feels like they set a negative LOD bias somehow, but in a good way, where everything just feels, it's like you got a new pair of glasses or something.
Yeah.
And you're just like taking in, it's like HD vision. This feels like HD vision for real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It just super clean and clear and good looking. There's no more of that kind of shimmer and breakup and unstable edges and
None.
things like that. But we used to get with the old PSSR solution, or with the old checkerboarding solution, which looked pretty good, I thought, on base PS5. But
It did.
Definitely a big improvement over where they were with checkerboarding in the launch code, and definitely in prior games where the checkerboarding wasn't nearly as good in that performance mode. As you recall, John, they improved that quite a lot in a subsequent patch. I think you covered that. And it looks really good. It looks kind of smooth in some respects, but smooth in a pleasing way, and it just produces a really refined image. When I actually compared it against DLSS with Alex, I think I did a video on it back last year, we found that it compared pretty comparably. DLSS had fewer issues with like particles and things like that, but Pro had smoother SSR resolve. I thought it had a better SSR resolve on bodies of water. So
That's right.
I actually thought that it was a pretty good solution, even relative to the very best of the best, which DLSS was at that time. Now, maybe relative to FSR4 or DLSS4, it wouldn't fare quite as favorably. Maybe it's not up to quite that height, but it still does produce extraordinary image quality. Definitely the best looking image quality for like a 3D game on console I've probably ever seen, or at least a complex 3D game like this. It's just insane with all that detail rendered out into the distance, but still looking perfectly smooth on a television
Agreed.
set. Yeah.
Now, amusingly, another Decima game shipped this year. and it's good. It's Death Stranding 2.
Mhm.
And in fact, Death Stranding 1 just received an update as well, which you haven't looked at the time of video. But Death Stranding 2 did not seem to use this solution necessarily, or at least the results aren't nearly as effective as what we saw in Horizon Forbidden West.
Mhm.
So it feels more like they're using the slightly older iteration of what Guerrilla Games had done for Horizon prior to the PS5
Right.
Pro upgrade. But still, it's a nice improvement. It's definitely sharper and smoother than what you get on the base PS5. So that's another good example of a game that takes advantage of it. And while we're on games that don't use PSSR but benefit a lot from the Pro, another one I wanted to mention real quick is one I covered recently. It's Ninja Gaiden 4. And this is a great example.
Yes.
This is probably one of the largest upgrades just in terms of what the user experiences, in the sense that essentially in the other versions, to get 60 FPS, you have to sacrifice a lot of image quality to get there. Like a lot.
Mhm.
The game does not look that good on those machines. On the Pro, you actually do get to use essentially quality mode settings now, but at a higher frame rate. And in fact, because it allows you to uncap the frame rate, and only on Pro can you uncap it, and couple that with VRR, you can actually get frame rates like 60, 70, 80 FPS in a mode that on the base consoles is capped at 30 FPS. So you're seeing gigantic leaps in terms of image quality and performance together. And it makes a big difference. And as a result, I really do think that aside from perhaps the PC, it's far and away the best place to play it. And it's a perfect example of even if you don't go too far with the upgrades, right? They didn't leverage PSSR here. They didn't do anything special above just like better performance and image quality. I feel like this is a great way to do it. It's just like, hey, it's faster, it's smoother. This is why you would buy a PS5
Right.
Pro.
Mhm.
I was just going to say there's a couple of other third parties, I guess, that kind of tick the boxes in a similar way, where, you know, they nailed the use of PSSR in a way that benefits everyone. So I've got a couple on top of my head. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 did exactly that. It had 1440p 30 fidelity mode, a 1080p 60 performance mode on base PS5, and now there's just only one like default way to play on Pro with PSSR at 1296p, which is great, and it upscales beautifully to 4K, sharper image, and runs at 60 with a little bit of extra flicker from the PSSR upscale. But I think that's a given given the characteristics of the upscale. But yeah, the benefits heavily outweigh that, and it kind of divorces you from any need to choose when you boot the game up. Going back to what you said, Oliver, about not wanting checkboxes and, you know, loads of graphics toggles when you boot the game. You just want to play sometimes. That's this is the perfect solution. And on top of that, the other one that did this very well, third party wise, was Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Previously 720p to 1080p FSR 2. Now it's 1080p to 1440p reconstructed with PSSR on Pro. Better 60 FPS performance, with the only mark against it really being that it's not like a locked 60 on that speed mode. So, you know, when you get loads of Tyranids on screen, the fact that PS5 Pro doesn't offer a substantial boost in terms of CPU,
Right.
it's not quite able to really make a big difference over base PS5 in every respect. So, but it's still, you know, a very solid upgrade. And the only final one, I guess, in that sense is Hellblade 2, which is
Heckblade,
which is it has the toggle, the PSSR toggle and TSR, so you get to choose there, but better image quality and good use of PSSR from what I saw. So I think those three third parties, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Hellblade 2, and Warhammer 40k, really kind of hit the mark in some very positive ways there.
So, Tom, would you say I've only played Space Marine 2 on the personal computer, Lieutenant, but is this sanctified ground the most righteous theater upon which to unleash the Emperor's wrath through most excellent gameplay?
On console, yeah.
Oh,
I would
okay.
say.
So-
Sorry, not
all
on
right.
PC. Compared to PC, there's no chance.
Compared to PC,
Yeah.
never mind.
I have played quite
I
a
was getting
bit.
excited for a second.
I've played quite a bit of Space Marine 2. I've beaten it on PC, and I gotta say, the advantage of just having like a beefy CPU in that game to push you past 60 FPS, it's really nice. It's nice to have that.
It is. It is nice. It is nice. I would agree. That's cool. So yeah, third party stuff. It's nice to see some good games on that front. And there's a bunch of other ones. You mentioned those. There's the Resident Evil games. We don't need to go into great detail. Tom, you've done that before, but you get nice resolutions and performance boosts, right? You get smooth 120 FPS, but you also get the ray tracing modes at full frame rate. Capcom also continued with Monster Hunter Wilds, which Oliver, you covered. I actually haven't played this one. Remind me, what I do remember this being somewhat unattractive, this game. But
yeah, that's one way to put it. On PS5, it was quite ugly. I would say it ran it would bottom out around 720p. It ran with DRS, had a pretty crude spatial upscale. It looked pretty bad with very strong sharpening, not very refined. On PS5 Pro, they're using a 1080p internal resolution with a much greater temporal stability, I would say. It looks quite a bit nicer there. I think with PSSR as well. And then it has a resolution mode.
Very nice.
A resolution mode, which is similar to PS5, but with better image quality. And it has RT reflections now. And then it has a balanced mode, which also includes RT reflections on PS5 Pro. So it gets a nice bit of improvements there with better image quality, with PSSR across all modes, with the addition of RT reflections on PS5 Pro. Just seemed like a nice set of upgrades that makes for a meaningful difference for the base console.
That's really nice indeed. And the same can be said, I didn't mention it yet, but Stellar Blade is a first-party game. Amazing use of PSSR in that game. You could still find a little bit of noise in spots, but by and large, it was smooth and it looked a lot better than the regular version. I think Helldivers 2 also saw a nice boost with higher resolution and more stable performance, which is great. Forza Horizon 5 is an interesting one. That's the second Microsoft published game that sees major improvements. Horizon 5 is a freaking gorgeous game on everything already.
100%.
But here on the Pro, basically, they allow you to use the ray traced reflections in game, similar to the PC. But unfortunately, as is the case with all these Forza Engine games, the ray tracing is extremely limited.
It's vehicle self reflections, which you might see the mirror.
Blinking, you'll miss it.
It's nice. It's a nice bonus, but it's got nothing on what they did with like GT7.
To me, I think the real nice thing in that in the Forza Horizon 5 on PS5 Pro is the fact that you get basically most of the quality mode foliage settings, like those nice quality mode foliage LODs, in the performance mode now. So you get a lot less pop,
right?
And you get the higher quality foliage. That's a big improvement. You don't get everything, like you don't get like the nice, I think the parallax occlusion maps or cone step mapping. I don't think you get that, but you get most everything else, which is quite a nice improvement to have in that 60 FPS mode.
So it's a really good version of the game. You also mentioned Battlefield 6 as being a good PS5 Pro implementation.
I did. In that case, basically on PS5 Pro, in the 60 FPS mode, in the so-called balanced mode, which is their 60 FPS mode, you get PSSR, which actually looks pretty reasonable, pretty decent. You get a very 4K-like image, quite sharp, has some issues with foliage, things like that, but not too bad. You also get the SSGI, in place of the GTAO, which I think produces a more realistic kind of ambient occlusion look, global illumination look with less over occlusion, less of that nasty over occlusion. And then it also seems to run much better when you actually unlock the frame rate with a VRR and 120 hertz output in the performance mode. So you get a much better run of play there. You're looking at I didn't get like for like footage in every scenario, but it's like often 10 FPS, 15 FPS above the base PlayStation 5, which seems like a pretty profound improvement for a game like that. So I thought that was a pretty good set of upgrades.